I'm Donny Bradley. I'm a founder of Lola Beans Drive-Thru Coffee. It's a fun beverage, good energy drive-through coffee concept based in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Donny. I'm Darren Spicer, co-founder and CEO of Clutch Coffee Bar. We have 15 drive-through coffee locations across North and South Carolina, and have been in the coffee industry on and off for about 15 years.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Darren. Well, hey, Darren, so Danny gave us some questions to ask, and this is the icebreaker question. So I'll get it started for us. So dirty soda, fad or phenomenon? Have you had it? And if you had to create one, what would you put in it?
There's a lot of layers to this. Okay, yeah. So we'll start top down. Dirty soda, fad or phenomenon? Given the longstanding history of soda being successful in the United States, I think it's here to stay. So I would lean more phenomenon than fad in terms of that specifically. If I had to create one, what would the flavor be? It's really interesting. My gut on that would go with I loved anything related to like cream soda when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I think where this is going to go, if I was going to create something, would be to try to find a more exotic flavor combination, something that innovates a little bit more, and I think allows people some creativity. So probably that follows the trend of energy drinks with fruit flavors, right? And coming up with your own exotic fruit combination. Maybe one that we carry, it's called the Electric Stardust, where it would be a combination of strawberry, peach, and white chocolate, something like that. A little off the wall, but when you put it together, it tastes pretty incredible. So,
yeah, no, that's awesome. I was also going to ask you. You probably have to come up with a cool name, and sounds like you did. Sounds like you nailed the cool name. So,
no, got to make it fun.
Yeah, that's it. Got to make it fun.
Yeah. Okay. So my icebreaker for you, if you could only have one type of coffee for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. So, I'm gonna. Well, so if it's just one type of coffee, I mean, I'm gonna give you two answers, because one type of coffee, I'm old. I love brewed coffee in a cup. I love a good house roast in the morning, just kind of a smooth, get your day started. That black coffee in a cup is my go-to. But yeah, I guess in terms of if it was one coffee, like a fun like espresso drink or something, it'd probably have to be our White Kitty, which is our vanilla caramel latte. It's like our top drink. It's our awesome drink, and it's named after my wife. We couldn't name the vanilla caramel latte. Speaking of fun names, Darren, we were naming all these names. We couldn't come up with a good name for our vanilla caramel. So I was like, you know what? My wife, Missy, couldn't name her cat. She had Black Kitty, Gray Kitty, White Kitty. So I was like, let's just call it the White Kitty. So I'd probably have to go with the White Kitty, or just black coffee in a cup.
So you got a fun drink, a great name, and it checks the box of having your wife be bought into what you're doing too. So
that's it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. All right. So next question is, so training and labor in the coffee world now. So it's, how are you helping the younger employees, particularly be more like hospitable? So beverages a category where face-to-face is so critical. We all know that's not a huge love of the new like digital native generation. So how are you addressing that?
I love this question. This is great. So I'll answer it in a couple parts. Number one, at a macro level, we believe that part of our responsibility for the employees that we have, for who most of the time it's their first or second job, to be totally honest, is to equip them with life skills that they can carry well beyond any time they spend at Clutch. Some of them may grow with us for a long time. The majority of them are going to go on and do something else, which is totally fine. So for us, it's giving them skills and providing them with skills that they can carry over, which includes something as simple as having and carrying a face-to-face conversation. The younger generation now, I'm not sure what generation that's labeled as Gen Z or whichever one comes after that, so tech focused growing up as kids. It's hard, you might see a group of kids sitting at a table and everybody has their phone out. No one's actually even conversing. So can we give them skills and teach them skills that will allow them to be successful wherever they're going to go, to be able to walk into a room and confidently have a conversation, and work a room, or not be afraid to ask someone a question and have eye contact with them. So that's, I think, a really big thing. And then how are we addressing it in terms of like the technology? I think it's an interesting fusion, right? Where we want to be tech forward, but at the same time, like, we're not the brand investing tens of thousands of dollars into AI. I personally don't believe anything will ever replace the face-to-face human interaction, whether that's at the window or whether that's an order being taken outside. So it's a combination of having robust tech to make your order process fast enough to be able to pull through high volume, but also not taking away that element of, at the end of the day, we're in a relationship business, and all of us value that, whether it's an internal or external relationship with our employees or our customers. So it's kind of finding that fusion of those two things together. But it's one of the things that we're the most passionate about, because I think it's a really cool thing when you have an employee leave, go do a dream job, which this is a real example. A employee who was an assistant manager who was going to NASCAR tech for school, left, got their dream job at Audi, and then 6 months later sends a text and says, all the things you taught us about leadership, I'm now leading a team of 5 people and I'm implementing them, and it's awesome. Like, that's the win. That's amazing. So yeah, long-winded, but I'm passionate about that answer.
Hey, Darren, no, I love that. I mean, it sounds like, it's part of your purpose, is, I'm a big Tennessee fan, and Nick Saban, who's just down the road, who's had that like sustained excellence for all time, talks about how the decision people make to come to Alabama is more than just a 4-year, it's just more than a 4-year, commitment. It's about what he can do for them to make them be more productive as they go on in life and have productive lives, be good husbands, be good wives, be good employees. And what can they learn from that time with you? And it sounds like you nailed that. Sounds like you've got that kind of down, and that's it. I love it. I absolutely love that.
Well, and I wasn't expecting this, but I'll throw you some credit as well. So I went to University of Oregon. I still have season tickets for the Ducks. The best road stadium I've ever been to is Rocky Top in Knoxville. We sailgated for a couple hours before the game, and down on the river there, had a great time. So the atmosphere and the energy, I have a very strong feeling that your passion for that probably parlays right into Lola Beans as well. So yeah.
Okay, that one, I think I was there. I think that's when this big bad thunderstorm came through.
2010, Michael James went crazy. 48-10 was a score for.
Y'all put. I'm not. Let's not. I know. I was going. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed. I'm glad you enjoyed. That wasn't a long trip for nothing for you. That was y'all put it on us pretty good.
Yeah, but just a really cool, passionate area of the country. So I'm sure I'm sure customers are equally supportive of you guys there. So. All right, here's a question for you.
Okay.
When you talk about delivering hospitality and customer service in the drive-thru experience, what does your technology roadmap look like? Or in other words, what kind of tech are you using to deliver the human touch?
Well, so for us, when I think of technology, in order to deliver hospitality, it's how do we speed things up and make things faster for the purpose of having more time to interact with our regulars. Our regulars come through, 4 or 5 times a day, kind of thing. I mean, for a week, they're coming through sometimes multiple times a day. And it's like, what we use, I think y'all do the same. We're out in the line, similar to Chick-fil-A, iPads, face-to-face at the window, taking the orders. And then, any technology that we look at moving forward, I want it to be for the sake of being able to, increase our hospitality and be able to have that increased time with, with our customers. And when we do that, we're trying to, we're fortunate enough to have that ability to do it in an organic manner, because, and Dan, I'm sure you're the same way over in North Carolina, your regulars are coming through. So you can train your employees. You don't have to do I don't want to knock anybody, but a welcome to so-and-so, or a canned, a canned speech kind of delivery thing. You can
My pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, but we have the opportunity, I think, to organically get to know those regulars and just have people, I call it head on a swivel, be looking for ways to make those connections, and just build that organically over time. So any technology that we employ, I want to make sure that does it improve the customer experience, and is it easy for our employees to implement, and does it give us more time for that connection? And I'm talking, it's an extra 10 seconds, 15 seconds kind of thing. Yeah. So that's a great question, but that's the way we look at it.
Love it. Love it. It's kind of the phrase we use. I think the moment in time you're describing is, we talk about mastering the brief yet impactful conversation, right? You have a very short window to impact. And sometimes you kind of play therapist too. You learn more about your regulars than you ever thought you would know, but it's part of the deal.
Yeah, no, that's Darren. That is it. So when, one of the reasons I got into this business is, I was medical. I had a surgeon that was in Chattanooga that had moved back up to Alaska to start a spine practice. I was in between reps. I yanked the wife and the kids out of school and said, we're moving to Alaska. So we moved to Alaska for 6 months. And, I'm an Air Force brat. I'm used to moving around. It's not a big deal for me. But my kid's born and raised in Chattanooga. My wife's from Chattanooga, born and raised. And all of a sudden they're getting yanked out of Chattanooga and they're in Alaska. And we're going through they have these little like huts that look like something you'd buy at Home Depot. I mean, you're from Oregon, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But there was this one hut, and it was True Blue, and a girl named Jenna. She's got 4 cars on each side. The window is open. She's playing music. She is, slinging drinks, and she's talking to my wife about some certain shops in town, and she's asking my daughter about snowboarding at Alyeska. And that's when I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. This is it, right? We had Dunkin' and we had Starbucks, and it's more like, here's the coffee, give me the money, it was just all
transactional.
Yeah. But I saw what Jenna was doing, and it kind of opened my eyes to that. And I was like, this is what we want to do. And we have that opportunity. And we've got above our door, we have big sliding doors where you kind of go out into the line. And above that, we put up there, how do we make people feel? And I want our team to understand you have an opportunity to make somebody's day by that interaction. Somebody could be having a bad day. You can make them, feel better. But we have that opportunity to really, truly affect. It sounds like that's what you're doing also over there in North Carolina. But, you understand it. We have an opportunity to really affect somebody's day in a positive way.
I love the phrasing though too, of it's an opportunity versus it's not like, hey, I have to go to work, or, oh, I have to go do this. It's like you have an opportunity to impact someone. It's mindset for sure.
Yep. No, that's it. It's just like we have an opportunity to lead every day, right? We have an opportunity to go solve problems, go lead, go build a business. It's just all an awesome opportunity. So yeah, that's 100%. All. Is it my turn?
Yeah. What you got for me?
Okay, here we go. So we kind of got into a little bit of leadership. This is in the leadership round. So what was the most impactful moment of your career, and how did it change how you lead?
The most impactful moment of my career. There's 2 points that stick out to me in different times. The first one that was impactful. So I worked at Dutch Bros for almost a decade before I started Clutch. I worked there when I was in high school and college. I left and got an adult job, and something pulled me back in terms of loving the community aspect, the relationships, the business, just the aura, kind of like you mentioned of, you've got upbeat environment, people are having fun. I worked briefly in like Firestone Auto Care, right? No one's happy to bring their car in and get it fixed. Like no one's stoked to write $1,000 check to do that.
Right.
But like coffee or energy drinks or anything there, it's a personal daily treat that someone wants to give themselves that I think is cool. So the first moment in time was when Dutch Bros understandably changed their model for the final time, where there was no more franchising. I had been working, they had a prerequisite at the time that you had to at least manage for a year. I was 9 months into that 12-month process. And as a former med device, you'll appreciate this. But for the 9 months, I was doing both. So I did 40 hours a week med device and 30 hours a week managing a new location that they had open. And 9 months into that, they changed it for the final time and said, hey, we're not going to do franchise anymore, but we have this really cool program called Operating, which for someone who was younger and maybe didn't have as much life experience, that made sense. At that time, I was late 20s, and the amount that operating, the opportunity there would still represent like a 60% pay cut for me. And so I'm like, and you have no equity, right? So I'm like, that's tough. So that was a turning point. I remember telling my employees at that store when I left, I'm going to start a coffee company and I'm going to name it Clutch, because I'm a big sports fan. And when a player steps up and delivers in crunch time, they are in essence clutch. Yep. I want us to be that for our customers every day. So that was probably the first big one. The second one was, this was, almost 4 years ago, but we ended up having to let go one of our founding members, who was incredibly instrumental in helping us get off the ground. But I think the business outgrew them. And that was a tough spot because it was probably the hardest conversation I've ever had to have. But it was the right thing to protect the other 200 plus people that called Clutch home. And it was a turning point in the sense of, choose wisely who you surround yourself with and make sure you're aligned with your goals and your growth, and that everybody has the same mentality to grow. So those were probably two really interesting inflection points that impacted me a lot along my journey.
Yeah. Darren, that's awesome. I can't imagine doing a medical device job and managing a Dutch, especially I'm sure the volume at that Dutch was not small.
It was about one. Yeah. When we opened it, it was about 1 million AUV. When I left, it was about 1.5 million. I think it's over 2 now, but it was about 1.5 million. So like it was, I was overseeing 3 states med device wise. And I just grinded, man. I mean, just got after it and pulled nights and weekends and tried to be as omnipresent as I could. And it was cool to see the store grow. But then I had my own aspirations of wanting to create something to create value and, spread my wings a bit. So, good life experience. So when people talk about a long day, I'm like, was it long? Like, let's define this.
It's like I always go back. My kids are sick of me saying, talking about 2-a-days in Florida heat in high school playing, football. I'm like, if I could get through that, I could feel like I could get through anything,
Yeah.
If I could get through some of these long nights and doing what you're supposed to do and always doing the hard things with medical device, because that's what's best for the surgeons and the patients. If you can do those things, it kind of sets everything. But Darren, that's awesome that you do that. I just heard a stat the other day that 70% of the people say they want to be in business for themselves, and only 6% actually are. And so for you to do what you did and pull, double jobs and go start, I mean, hats off to you. That's awesome.
Well, and I mean, thank you. I think the credit, like a motivator for me, actually, ironically, is the one living founder of Dutch Bros, Travis Boersma. So if he ever hears this, it's a shout out to him. But he talks about if you want to write your own story, right, and you want to create something, you have to take massive action. If you don't take massive action, which is the hardest part, it's the hardest part to commit. It's risky. You don't know what's going to happen, right? We signed the agreement for our first 2 locations while I was on my honeymoon in Australia. Like, you don't know what's going to, and you put all this effort into opening But the reality is you don't know until that day comes in the following weeks and months, like what's going to happen, like, or, is it going to go well? But you have to be willing to put yourself in that spot to be uncomfortable. So,
Yeah.
shout out to him for motivating me on, on that piece. So.
Yeah, no, that's also, so Jenna, who started True Blue, the girl in Alaska, we got our first shop opened up in September of 2020. I was back up there talking to her about, some different things and some drinks and everything, and talking to her about some stuff. And come to find out, she worked for Dutch when she was in college, like down in Arizona or somewhere. And so then I started looking up, like Travis and Dutch brothers, and found Travis and that whole story, and the story of the brothers, and Dane, and then the mindset of giving back and what they do, the whole drink one for Dane thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm familiar with that story, and I think Travis has done a fantastic job with getting that going.
Inspired a lot of us along the way, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
For sure. All right, so I have a leadership question for you. What is the number one lesson that your mentor has given you to lead a company, or has anyone ever given you advice that didn't work?
Well, then, so the number one, the advice for leading a company for me is, there's a couple things. There's a couple components to this. So, I'm a big believer of, it's hard to have rules without a relationship and getting to know the team that you're leading. And then as a leader, you need to be doing a great job of, I think a leader shares what they know in order to make other people better. And they also need to be on this journey and sharing the journey of, where is Lola Beans going? What is the journey that Lola Beans is on, and are we taking people with us? And so those are the kind of the keys to leadership is, for me, it's I think a leader is responsible for building the culture, right? And then the culture is going to drive the behavior, and then the behavior will drive the results. But it is absolutely up to the leader to establish that culture. And if you've got B leadership, you're going to get B results. You know what I mean? So it's up to B. And this is, I don't know, this is, Darren, you're a sports fan. So this is basically Tim Kite. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was out at UCLA and kind of was around John Wooden, got exposed to John Wooden, came back and was on Urban Meyer's national championship team. He was the only coach on the team that never played football, but has taught like this leadership, just the basics of leadership, which has really been instrumental to me, because I grew up playing quarterback and thought I knew what leadership was, and rah, 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 let's go and do this. But there's so much more, and it's so complex, and there's so many more facets. And, I think I'll be learning about leadership 5, 10, 15 years from now and continuing to grow. On the failure part of it, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I think moving around in the air, I think moving around the Air Force and moving to new schools, and, having to go into those new cafeterias, and on the first day of school, and hoping I met people that would, I'd get to know, and people would be nice to me. I think it kind of leans into why I want to take care of my customers and make my customers feel welcome when they come through. But it also made me a little bit more of a people pleaser, wanting to connect. And I think every failure in leadership starts with, or every failure in leadership starts with not having the tough conversations, or not being willing to have the tough conversations and avoiding those. And so there's a great book that I love called The Road Less Stupid. And it's a gentleman named Keith Cunningham who talks about paying the dumb tax, and talks about not setting the standards, not having the tough conversations that need to happen. And so that's the biggest failure for me. In my previous business, I got to where I'd worked with people for a long time, and I was frustrated with some of the performance, but I didn't have the tough conversations that needed to happen as quickly as they should have happened, and just let that escalate. So I am now recovering people pleaser and a student of leadership, and I'm going to be putting the pedal down on that, and
I love
trying to
that.
get better. So
And it's a journey, not a destination, right? I mean, it's constantly growing and evolving. So
that's it. That's it. I love that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
that is it exactly. So, well, we're allowed to do, I guess, some lightning round questions where I
Yeah.
can make up my own. You know, Darren, like kind of seeing you on some of the podcasts and kind of knowing your background a little bit, I feel like we're kind of, of similar mindset. And so I'd love to hear your perspective on, and I don't know if this has already happened or not, but there's some big players in the drive-through the business. There's some guys with that have been doing this for a little while, and some guys that are kind of really getting this going. We've got a lot of money backing them. You 15 stores is awesome. How do you compete, or have you had to compete against one of these bigger players that move in close to you or across the street, and how do you lead your team through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. The answer is yes, we have had to. I don't think it's to the level of saturation that you might see where I grew up in the Northwest, where it's like every other corner. We're not at that point yet, but it is real, and I think even for myself, sometimes it can be easy to get either distracted or consumed by some of that. But at the end of the day, a lot of those things are uncontrollables, and so the biggest thing we've told our team is control what you can control. Like, let's be who we are, and those relationships, if they're real, people will continue to support and want to visit. I think the other, at least for us, and maybe this is a play on words for us, but like, we've had employees say, well, what should I say if they say, oh, are you like this other brand, or how are you different than this other brand? Mm-hmm. And for us, I'm like, it's very simple. Like, it's 2 words: we're clutch. That's it. Like, just keep it very simple. But the point of that being, like, none of us invented the wheel, right? We're all aiming to have our own best version of delivering great experience, great products in a fast manner, right? That's the high and the low of it. So for us, it's like, how can we be the best version of that for ourselves? And I do truly believe that all boats rise in a rising tide. I think it elevates the awareness of the concept, especially in the Southeast where you and I are at. Mm-hmm. It's newer in terms of drive-through beverage focus, right? Yeah. There's 100 chicken concepts, burger places. South loves QSR, but beverages is on the forefront and newer. So I do think there's enough, to coexist. And if I ever really think about it too much, I just remind myself that there's Wendy's and McDonald's and all those right next to each other all the time, right? Still in business. So it's a great question, but it's, be who you are, who your brand is, and control what you can control.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. That's, like you said, control the controllables, and, focus on ourselves and become elite, the best version of ourselves. And, yeah, I also think that I can kind of see, I think people that are competitive like to compete. And I think competition is going to actually, like, somebody that's played sports like yourself and myself. I think, we know that competition is going to actually make us better. It's going to push us and drive us. And, we've got all the things that drive us now, but it's like, it kind of gets you going a little bit. So I think it makes you say, hey, what do we need to be tweaking on? What do we need to be working? How do we keep continuously get better? And it's, yep. It's a consistently, consistent improvement. We're going to be improving 5-10 years from now, 15 years from now, I'm sure our brands. And so, yeah, that's the way I look at it also. But that's great. That was a great answer. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Love it. You want to go back and forth, or you want to go all at once?
Yeah, well, let's go back and forth.
Okay. All right. So we'll give you an easy one first.
Okay.
this kind of ties into the one coffee question, but are you hot or iced coffee, and why?
So if I'm going espresso, I'm iced. Like if I'm gonna do the white kitty, it's iced. Um, but I always do my like brewed coffee hot. And so it's like we're trying to create two product customers. I mean,
Yeah,
I want that. I'd love to have that morning coffee person that gets that, hot coffee. So for me, it'd be hot coffee and then maybe an iced coffee in the afternoon, or one of our fun beverages. We've got, energy drinks and like lemonades and green teas. So it would be hot in the morning with a brewed coffee. And then if it was a latte, I'd go with the iced.
very diplomatic answer. No, that's good. I like it covers
Yeah.
it covers all the
Yeah.
sectors.
Yeah. No, that's it. So Darren, and in terms of hiring and employees, I think and I'm sure you share the same fact that that's really critical. What do y'all do to make sure you're hiring, the best employees, and how do you address ones that maybe aren't fitting the culture?
It's a good question. I'll start by saying that really good help is hard to come by, hard to find. And so I think it's being very intentional and being picky about who we're going to have as the front end face of the company and in leadership positions. We recently had a manager that we put in place and kind of identified fairly early on that this was not going to be the right seat and the best fit. And so rather than letting that, work to coach first, but then if that wasn't working, rather than letting that fester or suffer, we made a move and had the tough conversation, so to speak. So I think it's being very intentional and selective, being okay to say no to people. And the other one, what do we do if they don't fit? We do a quarterly thing where we'll actually measure, as it's kind of part of a EOS or Pinnacle leadership program, but we have a quadrant where we'll grade every single employee, right? Are they falling in the right quadrant? Are they falling in the risky quadrant? And if we've identified through that or just other organic business that someone's not the right fit, we will promote them to customer, which it's like, this is not going to be the right fit. And,
Yeah.
and we need to go in a different direction. So those again are never easy. We just did a cultural reset at one of our busiest stores, had a change in leadership, needed to do some spring cleaning, if you will. And it's tougher on the front end because our labor is stretched, thin, but making the right moves to ultimately to serve customers is the right thing to do.
Yeah. No, I would agree, because sometimes the things we don't do that our employees watch, like not addressing that person that's not a cultural fit, or that's maybe not following the internal rules. And if we just kind of keep allowing them to do certain things,
it's telling them something, and it's not what you want to be telling them, right? Which is like that this is, that this behavior is acceptable, or like, hey, you can do this, and they're not going to do anything about it. Like, it's tough.
Yeah. No, your team's watching. They're watching you as the leader, and so, right. You're getting a culture, whether you can either establish a culture, or a culture is going to be created if you're not on top of it. So that's awesome.
Okay, next one for you. What is the favorite thing about your business? What is your favorite thing?
So for me, it is the team. So when I was getting into the restaurant business, I had a bunch of people say, "You're crazy. You're going to be dealing with employees, and you're going to be, it's going to be nightmares." And so it's actually been the best part of our business. And and I'm sure you're in the same way. We're hiring juniors, mostly seniors in high school, and then college kids, and they're actually smart, they're sharp, they come up with like solutions. They make it fun. It's fun to go to work. Like I want to get myself out of the office as much as I can and in the stores, because I enjoy being up in there. I get that good energy. Our tagline is we're Lola Beans, it's good energy. And it truly is like a little, it charges your battery when you're in there. It's not to say that we don't have like certain issues and everything, but overall, that's been the absolute best part of this. And then, you know, we're trying to also teach like a little bit more of a, like we've got a culture, but going back to our sports backgrounds is we want to be performance based, and we want to be a team that feels like a family, not just a family, right? A family, you can't fire crazy Uncle Harry, you know what I mean? But a team is based around performance and takes pride in performance. The whole A players wanting to work with other A players. So we're looking to build that, and we're looking to build like on those crazy Saturday morning rushes where they're like, we just cleared X amount of cars with a one something turn time. And when I hear them talking about that in terms of them taking pride in their performance, that's like, that's just magic. It just fills my heart. And so for me, it's been the team, and I feel a sense of I've got to continue to get better as a leader to pour into them, to give them the things and teach them the hospitality, teach them more skills that they can use later, and just pour into them, because then that just carries over to our customers. So
100%.
yeah, 100% it's been the team for me, and I love that. So
that's awesome.
All right, so Darren, I am going the franchise route, but I saw that you're doing corporate stores. Could you tell me what was your decision to kind of lean into corporate versus going the franchise route?
Yeah, really good question. Initially, we were very protective of the brand. I probably have an email folder. It's 100 plus deep of people who have aggressively said, I want to franchise this. How do I do it? Et cetera. We wanted to be protective of the brand, make sure we had the right control, and we didn't have someone throw money at it to treat it like maybe a more traditional franchise that didn't value culture the same way we did, that didn't value people the same way we did. So that was our initial take on it. Getting to the spot where we're at now with 15 locations, I have heard enough feedback on both sides. I think there's no right or wrong answer. There's multiple ways to grow. And you're even seeing it with the bigger players, right? You're seeing it with Dutch Bros going all corporate and Seven Brew, as an example, going franchised.
Yeah.
So there's more than one way to do it. If you do the franchise, I think it's, for us, if we ever did it, we'd want to make sure it's a big lift. We want to make sure we do it the right way and we don't half-ass it, because there's a lot that goes into the entire process, and making sure that franchisees are supported. When crazy things like COVID happens, right? And stuff happens. So that was really our thought there. At some point in the future, Clutch, I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation in the market over time, just because there's so many different entities. And so I would say with where we're at now, it's probably a little cleaner for us, not having additional layers or other things. But yeah, that was just kind of our thought, mostly to protect the brand and make sure we had the ability to, see the right things through, just across the board. Yeah, that was probably our biggest focus.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, it seems like, did you, this is interesting. So you being from California, did you pick North Carolina? This is my observation is you picked North Carolina, and you've got, it's given you time to go get your culture in place, to get some stores going, to set everything up. So now when the Dutch of the world and the Seven Brews come into North Carolina, y'all seem like y'all are established and you can kind of weather that storm, or you're built to weather that storm. Is that?
Yeah, it certainly is I think that's certainly a fair point. That wasn't the main idea when we started there. When I left Med Device, I resigned as the national director of sales for a device company. And I spent a lot of time covering half the US, spent a lot of time in different markets. And so I had spent a good amount of time in Charlotte and Nashville, actually, specifically.
Okay.
And I really liked both of those markets for a number of reasons. You had younger, growing demographics, no public transportation. So everybody's driving from bedroom communities, to go to work. You had not a lot of presence of drive-through coffee, so that was beneficial compared to the West Coast. Minimum wage was lower, real estate was more affordable, just a lot of different things that made sense and made it a little bit safer of a play to start with, relative to how much it might cost to get going in other areas of the country. So that was the initial focus. I think it did give us a nice healthy head start relative to other brands coming into the area. People are always going to have choice once there's different things there, and that's totally fine. But for us, being a Carolina born brand, I was in North Carolina specifically 22 days a month for a year and a half straight to build the culture the right way, the way that we thought we wanted it to be. So that was the initial kind of foray. But all the big players now are going national rollout plans, and they have a lot of powder to grow at a faster velocity too. So,
Yeah.
control what we can control and be great to our customers.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That sounds great.
Okay. So maybe this is my next question. Maybe it's a little bit of a preview from how you just answered with franchising, but I was going to ask, what does Lola look like in 3 years?
In 3 years, well, I think we look like a franchise brand that is built from a really solid platform and ready to start expanding. I've had initial, so I was fortunate enough. I had a big former founder of a big chicken concept come through with his team. He had exited. He had come through right when I was kind of getting going, looked at it and said, he wanted 93% of it and was going to do X, Y, and Z, and rolled out this plan with franchising. So I was able to kind of look and see what the big guys were going to do with this concept. And, I passed. I love what I'm doing, and just wasn't ready to do that at that time. And then I had another friend that started ASP Pools that had sold out to Authority Brands, and kind of looked at, it's like those two people kind of coming in while I was getting this started kind of steered me toward franchising. And he coming in, looking at my brand, he had been in franchising for 25 years, was now with Authority Brands, and gave me some really good advice. But he also connected me with some people that he had worked with that were able to help set the foundation for Lola Beans correctly. And that's, that's getting, legal set up. I mean, like the franchise, you got to have the foundation. Like the legal's got to be set up correct. Your training has got to be set up, your supply chain and operations, and then your marketing. They all have to be kind of ready to go. And so after the big group was going to come through and wanted 93%, I'm like, how do I try to hang on to more equity and move this from more of a concept to more execution, and it's worth more once you got more stores, there's more execution that's happened versus one store or two stores kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I was going to go with a 5-year plan and just bootstrap this thing. And in about 3 years, I was hoping to be around 15 stores. Well, in the meantime, kind of with all these people kind of, I call them, little business angels that kind of come into your life and help with things. I've gotten a really good franchise development person that has come along. And then we've also gotten connected with an amazing marketing person, Brooke Budke and Hallie O'Neill from Momentum Brands. And Brooke had built Title Boxing from 12 up to 400 locations and become president of that brand. And she knew what kind of the challenges that a founders face. So we've gone from, looking to be like super small. And it's all about finding the right franchisees. It's not about just signing somebody up and bringing them into the system because they can fog a mirror. Like to your point, like you want to protect the culture, and you don't want to just bring anybody into this system. And that's what's kind of scary about franchising. And it all boils down to finding those right people. So with all that being said, I think in 3 years, we should be closer to, we should be sped up a little bit, and we should be closer to probably 20 to 25 units, I would imagine at that point, maybe a few more sold, and maybe about 20 open between franchise and corporate stores is kind of where I see it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Darren, man, this has been a bunch of fun. Maybe I'd love to catch up with you like one of the conferences, maybe at Danny's at QSR conference in Atlanta. I don't know if you do that or not, but I'd love to, pick your brain more and, buy you a beer and learn more about your story. I've heard on a podcast that you have a heart for kind of coaching and consulting with other with other brands. And so, I'm making this conversion from medical device to the restaurant business, and I love chatting. I mean, the thing I love about this it is so it goes from medical device was where I was very competitive and not as collaborative as what I'm finding in medical device and restaurant or QSR. And so I'm loving that component of it. And if you ever had any questions for me, I'm always happy to jump on a phone call or catch up at a conference. And it's been
absolutely. I'll for sure be at the one in Atlanta. I think I'm actually speaking on a topic there that Danny got me set up on. So cool. 100% will be there. I'm going to leave you with one last question, totally unrelated to business.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite place in the world to travel?
Ooh, it's going. You know what? This is not sexy, but it's South Melbourne Beach, Florida, down near Sebastian Inlet. I spent a little time in Satellite Beach, Florida. My mom had a place down there, but I got a little stand-up paddleboard, and we take the family down there, and they don't wake up till 11. So I get up in the mornings and go sneak around the mangroves and try to catch a snook or a redfish or a speck or something. And then I got aspirations of getting my big butt back surfing and getting up on a longboard and riding a longboard down there near Sebastian Inlet. So how about you? Where do you love to try? Where's your favorite place?
That's awesome. Not too far away from there, but the island of Exuma, Great Exuma in the Bahamas. So people might know it from either way back in the day, there was like a Bachelor series where they went swimming with pigs. That's Exuma. Or more recently where Fire Festival never happened. That's also Exuma. But yeah, wife and I got engaged there. We've probably been to 8 or 9 different places in the Caribbean, and nothing compares to Exuma in terms of the water, the culture, and the people, the food. It's awesome. So if we connect offline, we'll share some more travel notes together too.
Oh no, listen, my wife would love that. Is that a stay on property type of deal, or do you kind of?
My wife and I love exploring. So we'll get a spot that's basically right on the water for $250-$300 a night and go explore. There is, Sandals is there if you want to pony up $800 or $900 a night. It's there, but we like to go explore and have kind of that true beach feel. So yeah, there's just some really cool stuff. We're actually going to have a joint 40th birthday party there next spring, and just go bring all of our friends to our favorite place. So
that's awesome. That sounds like a bunch of fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, man, it was great chatting with you today. I really appreciate I think iron sharpens iron, and this is awesome to see the journey that you're on, that we're both on. And we'll 100% keep in touch and connect here, and shout out to Danny and QSR for getting us connected.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It was great meeting you, Darren. All right,
likewise.
Man, have a great one.